I quit the game. That's not what I meant to do. Hey, what's up you guys? This is Rob from Gay Guy Plays, and today on The Daily Grind, we're going to be taking a closer look at Ember's rework. Is she absolute shit now, or is she totally workable? First and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and hit you guys up with the build that I'm currently using and explain exactly why I've built her the way that I've built her. In addition to that, we're going to go down the line with each one of her abilities and note exactly what changed. Then after that, I'm going to give my opinions and feedback. So without ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, as for the build, aside from the standard survivability and efficiency mods, as you can see here, we have invested heavily in range, and that's mainly because within the recent changes, World on Fire's range actually deteriorates to half over time. So we went in heavy with the range, but because of the fact that its damage actually increases over time, I just went ahead and tossed out one of the power strength mods and put in another range mod. So for those of you guys who are unaware, there are actually 4 range mods that are currently available to us. One's an Exilus, so you might not really count that, but we do have Cunning Drift, we have Stretch, Augur Reach, and Overextended. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? I can just go ahead and slot in one of those and I will be just fine. Now, this build currently, when World of Fire shrinks, it drops down to about 15 meters. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at this other build, we've got a lot more range in it. However, this one only shrinks down to 18 meters. As you can see right here, we've got Firequake. And for those of you who are worried, I went ahead and looked it up and I tested it out. Firequake is not affected by power strength, so don't worry about using Overextended if you really do want to use Overextended, because legitimately it's not going to hurt the efficacy of the knockdowns from Firequake. So definitely keep that in mind. Now, this one only shrinks down to 18. So part of me is like, well, do I really want to give up the damage multiplier that I get from Accelerant? Do I really want to give up, you know, some of the damage of Firequake by using Overextended? A part of me is like, maybe not. So if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I would probably end up using this build for Firequake as well and just swap out Intensify and toss Firequake in its place, just because sometimes you're too lazy to like hit the buttons up there. Don't ask me. I'm a strange person. In addition, if you really wanted to invest more into power strength, you can also drop Intensify for, what is it, the energy conversion, so that you can get 50% whenever you pick up an orb and just go ahead and cast World of Fire from there. And then you can also swap out your aura slot and swap that out if you want more power strength. Listen, I don't really feel like we need that much power strength, but if you're trying to get your power strength on, you have options, so you can go ahead and use growing power there to kind of keep your power strength up, have your energy conversion on, so you get the most power that you can for when you cast your World on Fire initially. So that's what I'm currently working with. This is what I'm liking so far and what I've actually used in the footage later on, except I did slap Firequake on there just so that you guys are aware. Now, starting things off, we've got Ember's Fireball, and this one received a little bit of a tweak. As you can see right on the reticule of the screen, you can now charge up Fireball to deal double the damage and create Napalm that is twice the range of the original. So as you can see right here, we've got a little teensy tiny one, which is about 3 meters wide. However, the fully charged Napalm is 6 meters. In fact, just so that you guys are aware, and I can make it like very, very plain to see, you can actually have multiple Napalms going on at once, but they only last for about 10 seconds a piece, which is a little bit of a bummer because they are great to kind of like put in the way of an enemy when they're kind of walking through. It's kind of like the ghetto version of Fire Blast. However, sometimes you don't necessarily need all the crazy control, sometimes you just need a spot, right? Okay, so I'm fully aware that Accelerant hasn't actually been touched with her most recent rework. However, I did kind of want to point out its utility, mainly because of the fact that I had someone drop into my Twitch chat that was very, very upset about his Firequake Ember and that he wasn't going to be able to CC enemies anymore. And a part of me was very disturbed when I realized he did not know that on top of the fact that Accelerant has a damage multiplier with fire damage, it actually also stuns enemies. And I was like, if you want CC, your CC's right there. Yet he wasn't aware of the stun at all. So part of me is a little bit like, Well, maybe he was probably just using World on Fire and that's all he ever knew. So I wanted to go ahead and kind of spotlight this because this ability is actually extremely powerful. So let's go ahead and pop that up right now. Let's get a couple friends in there. And as you can see here, I'm actually behind cover. I went ahead and casted Accelerant, and you can see all these guys are actually stunned over here. Yes, we can actually chain those stuns. In addition, go ahead and take out these guys a little bit more. And just to keep myself safe, one more time. Now, clearly, if you have Firequake on, you don't necessarily need to do that. I'm just kind of demonstrating to you guys that the stun is there, the stun is powerful, the stun is very useful, especially when engaging at further ranges. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go ahead and turn on World on Fire. I'm going to wait a second for the range of it to decrease just a little bit. Let's go ahead and wait for that 100% real fast. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and hit them with a little bit of that Accelerant. As you can see here, what we're basically going to do is we hit them with Accelerant as we're running in. So that way, we can get them at about that 38-meter range. Then, as your World on Fire is ticking and it's at a shorter range, you can go ahead and hit them with the knockdowns when you get a little bit closer to them. So again, right here, they're already Acceleranted. And as you can see right there, we're getting in range to knock them down with Firequake. And boom, you're all set, and you've got your CC. Your CC still exists. Just make sure that if you are in a very, very crowded area, number one, stay moving, and number two, make sure you're tossing out an Accelerant every now and then to keep enemies stunned, because it does have a bigger range than World on Fire did in the first place. So with some of the more extended builds, you can actually hit 50 meters pretty easily. So a 50-meter stun that you can do behind cover, that's pretty impressive. All right, now speaking about CC, I did want to remind you guys real quick about the fact that Ember's Fire Blast actually has built-in knockback as well. So just in case you were looking for another flavor of CC, we've got that for Ember, but that didn't actually change with the recent update. That's been there for a while. What has changed is that firing through the flames of your Fire Blasts actually deal 50% bonus fire damage. Now, for those of you who are curious as to how this works out for modding, the way that I want to explain this the best is basically think of it as you have added a 50% fire damage mod to the end of your build. So, if you have a spare element that's just kind of hanging out with no pair to combine with, then it will combine with that fire. Definitely keep that in mind. However, if you've already got a fire mod that's on there, then it will actually go ahead and combine with that fire mod to strengthen whatever elemental combo that it is empowering. However, if you don't have any, spare elemental mods that are just hanging out, then you'll just get pure fire damage, which is actually pretty damn good because of the fact that it works hand in hand with Accelerant, and you get bonus damage off of that. So keep that in mind when you are looking at what weapons to go ahead and pair up with Ember. And last but definitely not least are the changes to Ember's World on Fire. Now, as you can see, I've actually got Firequake equipped, and when I cast it at the 28-meter mark, our little Billy the Bombard has been knocked on his butt. Now, for 5 seconds, nothing is going to happen. But after that 5-second mark shuts down, you'll actually see a percentage in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Now, what that percentage is indicating is the amount of bonus damage that World on Fire is doing, and also the amount of energy that World on Fire is consuming. So it'll actually double the amount of energy that it's consuming, which isn't necessarily that bad because legit, I kind of run my Titania on the same amount of energy consumption. As long as you build for efficiency, you should be fine. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the range, because once it hits 100%, it actually cuts the range of the ability down to half. It's a slow ticking thing, so it's over time. It's not just like instantly. But as you can see here, once we get to the 14-meter mark, boom, Billy the Bombard is knocked on his butt yet again. So the range has been halved, but the damage being done has been doubled. So again, a little bit of a modding trick for you to kind of like play around with, and it also kind of incentivizes you to use some of your other abilities if you're looking for a bit more CC. Now, as for my opinions and feedback, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Some of you guys are going to get really heated over my opinions on this, mainly because of the fact that I've been experiencing a lot of frustration from people over Twitch, And it kind of boils down into 3 territories. Either number 1, all they've ever known and all they've ever used Ember for was World on Fire. They didn't really know what the rest of her abilities did, so they never used them. So now that they're being forced to use them, they don't understand how great the rest of her kit is. Number 2, there are some people out there that have just looked at the numbers and just thrown Ember to the wind. They haven't even picked her up and tried her out because they see, you know, double the amount of energy, half the amount of range, and they can't get that percentage out of their head, but they haven't actually gone and tried her out in the field. And lastly are the people who refuse to budge from their mod sets. I feel like you should be flexible, and as somebody who's played the game for a long time, you should be able to kind of like figure out the puzzle pieces that DE has put into place for you. Okay, so you're getting 100% bonus damage, but you're getting a reduction in range. So guess what? Take out one of your damage mods and go ahead and put in one of your range mods. No, but I don't want to do that. DE should cater to the way that I build my Warframe. And I'm just kind of like rolling my eyes, to be completely honest with you. You guys kind of, if you want to continue to use Ember in the way that she was before, or close to the way that she was before, you really have to kind of adjust yourself a little bit, at least be a little bit flexible with the builds and play around with them to see how they really function. Now, when it comes to my feedback on what they could have done better with the rework, number 1, Fireball is just extremely blah. To be honest with you, we see it go from a 3-meter napalm range to like a 6-meter napalm range. A part of me is almost kind of like, all right, make 3 meters the base, but make it affected by range. And also, if you really want us to kind of invest in charging things up, go ahead and give us some bonus duration in addition to that too, to kind of keep down the fire patches and give Ember a little bit more, how do you say this? A little bit more strategy. So it kind of feels like, okay, we have option Fire Ring or we have option Big Napalm area that is increased when you charge it, so that it's competitive and so that it feels like it's more useful than it is. Because right now, it feels like a wimpy 1 ability, and let's be real, there are a lot of wimpy 1 abilities out there, but you know, if we're going to give her a zhuzh, if we're going to take away from somewhere, let's put a little bit more into what's currently happening. The next one is, ooh, see, the thing is, I want to buff Accelerant, but the thing about it is if I try to buff Accelerant, I know that I'm just going to make Accelerant OP. I was going to say make Accelerant duration-based in addition, the stun to it, but that might be a little bit much. I don't know if that's something that they can do, but if, you know, they can kind of give it a little bonus duration, that would be nice too. However, that might fuck up some of the builds that go negative on duration, so maybe don't listen to me on that one. Leave Accelerant the way it is. Don't fuck it up. In addition to that, we have Fire Blast. Now, I think that my biggest thing about Fire Blast that I really don't like is the Fire Blast Augment, which is Fire Fright. So as you guys know, Fire Fright causes enemies to panic that enter the ring of fire, or that, you know, are in that little ring. However, the way that they changed Fire Blast was they basically made it like one of those Eximus firewalls, right? So now you're knocking enemies away from the ring. However, the augment is to get enemies into that ring. So part of me is kind of like, those two mechanically just don't jive. Can we do something a little bit different with that? Now, what I was actually thinking is one of 2 things. You guys can hear me out. Is number 1, if we're going to kind of go with the flow of the way that the new ability is kind of tweaked, where it does bonus fire damage when you shoot enemies through it, what if you get a bonus to that bonus fire damage? Because for those of you who don't know, that that bonus fire damage isn't affected by power strength. However, what if every enemy you hit with your expanding wall of flames will add to the damage percentage of fire bonus that you get, right? I'm thinking that's pretty gosh darn good. Or have it work kind of in reverse. Instead of being an offensive ability, what if you made it a defensive ability where enemies who shoot their bullets through the fire melt their bullets and reduce the damage that you take while you're in the ring? Maybe even based off of how many enemies you hit, if you really want to make it kind of like a skill-based ability, you know? So part of me is just kind of like, Firefight, that augment, it just doesn't jive. So since you're in the, you know, rework mode, why not make it jive? Now, the last thing that I do have to talk about is World on Fire. The thing about World on Fire is what they wanted to prevent was basically people from killing enemies before anybody had even reached them or anybody had even seen them. And I agree with you. There were some times where I saw an Ember in the group and I was like, bye. I'm like, I'm getting out because I'm literally not going to be able to kill anything on this mission unless I can get ahead of this Ember. And even in some cases, I would have to get 20 to 30 meters ahead of that Ember because that Ember was killing everybody. So I can see exactly why they did what they did. So I'm just going to honestly leave World on Fire the way it is because I feel like they achieved what they were set out to do. Ember's no longer clearing mass areas like a room and a half worth, because let's be real, that's exactly what it is. It was about a room and a half that she was clearing out. Enemies couldn't even get to her. And same thing goes for Firequake. I know that a lot of people are like wishing that Firequake, you know, maybe would turn off the reduction of range, but this does kind of cause you to use the rest of her kit a little bit more. It was like brainless CC, you know, it's CC that you literally turned on at the beginning of the mission and you just ran your way through. And I think that one of the things that DE is not very fond of is abilities that are just trivialize everything. You know, whether it's going to be burning enemies to a crisp or CCing the shit out of enemies 2 rooms away and preventing them from coming into like defense areas or whatnot. It's just too easy. DE wants to make you work for it. So that's why I think that they've kind of positioned it in such a way where it's like, okay, use Accelerant, use Ring of Fire. They're encouraging you guys to use these other abilities, but still allowing her to keep the Firequake in there, so when she does get up close and personal with some enemies, or when like a butcher does come up right behind her and wants to try to fight her, they get knocked on their ass. So again, for me, if this is the way that they want Firequake, then I'm like, okay, fine. But you know, give a little love augment wise to Fire Blast and give a little love to Fireball, so it's kind of like, you know, it kind of gives you a little more weight from what's been taken away. But that about does it for my personal feelings on the situation. I'm sure that there are gonna be a bunch of people going cray in the comments below. Please, if you're gonna give feedback, make sure you give constructive feedback. It sucks is not feedback. That's just being a D-bag. Give a solution for the situation, otherwise ain't nobody gonna be able to help you, right? That's what this whole feedback part is for. And make sure that you leave it civil as well, because I know that it's a pretty hot topic right now. Okay, I'm gonna end it right there. So that about does it for me, and as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!